We know AI is coming to disrupt society. It's going to replace jobs, it's going to replace businesses, and really the only thing that we can do is implement it more into our lives. In our previous video, I broke down how I built a $45,000 AI solution and sold it to a business. And remember, I am not a technical person. I have no technical background, no computer science degree. I'm not an engineer, but I have taught myself how to build AI solutions so that I can sell them to businesses. And I'm not talking about simple N8N automations, make.com automations. While those are very valid in and of themselves, what I try to do is build custom solutions so that my stuff is a one of one. You cannot copy it. I mean, you could if you're really good at what you do, but it's much more difficult. And so this video is to break down the actual solution that we built and sold to this business from a technical standpoint in a way that's easily digestible. And the thought process is that whether you run a business, whether you have a job, or you're just a regular person and you want to use AI in one of those scenarios to its fullest potential, understanding how to think about technical solutions and how to think about AI with whatever problem you're dealing with, the more you understand it, the better you're going to be able to correlate and create a bridge between where you are and where you want to go. So this is relevant for business owners, this is relevant for employees, and this is relevant for just regular human beings that want to understand this stuff a little bit deeper. I promise to try to break this down as simply as I possibly can in plain English, right? No technical jargon or anything crazy. So to get us started, let me make sure this is even. So we built a scheduling system that makes compliant schedules on its own. It lets managers approve it with one click. And if the staff cannot cover a shift, it sends the opening to the favorite agency. Now, for context, this is a staffing technology solution, and they sell staffing technology to healthcare companies. So think nurses, security guards, very high compliance, high regulation industries that requires a lot of nuance when it comes to scheduling out the solution. Now, this is tricky because when you are dealing with high compliance industries, one error can be very costly. And what was happening with this business is they were having a lot of issues where the companies that were using their technology were overstaffing or understaffing. And so overstaffing means, let's take Julie. Let's say Julie is a nurse and she has been overbooked. So she gets overtime pay. Well, the more overtime pay she gets, the more the business loses out on profit margins. And this is especially frustrating when you have Julie who's not getting allocated enough hours, and so she's frustrated, so workforce morale goes down. Now, this is just like two little things of a whole range of issues that this causes, but you kind of get the idea. Another issue is that if they understaff, they have to immediately outsource to a third-party agency that's very expensive to come fill in with a nurse last minute. So all across the board, the goal of this solution is to, quite simply, increase profit margins, increase efficiency, and if I'm being honest, probably replace some employees that are not necessary once this is built out. So this is how the solution works just in kind of layman's terms. So we pull people and rules from the business. An AI planner builds the best draft schedules that covers every unit, it cuts overtime cost, and it respects preferences. A rule checker catches any problems before anything goes live. A manager will review that, they'll add some tweaks if needed, they'll approve it, and we write it back to the business. And all of this is going to run on our private AWS cloud with single sign-on, multi-factor auth, and no patient data leaving the environment. Very, very important for this business. And why this matters, well, like I said, less overtime, fewer compliance mistakes, faster publishing, and managers stay in control. So, if you think about what the system does at its core, it's basically a tool that makes weekly schedules follow your rules. It fills every shift with the right mix of licenses and skills, and it's going to keep the overtime low, hand it to a manager to approve. If we still have gaps, it sends those shifts to the preferred staffing agencies. So if you take a look at this graph here, you'll see optimal staffing, compliance, cost management, analytics, automation, patient safety. These are all the things that we're dealing with and that we're trying to work through. And there's really 4 building blocks of this solution that we need. We need data. We need the AI planner, which is really the intelligence, the language, the LLM that we would use. We need a rule checker. Rule checkers are so important when you're building custom solutions. The biggest problem with AI is the hallucinations, right? So it might hallucinate a regulation. You need rule checks in place throughout the entire system to make sure that nothing gets messed up. And we built out a paralegal solution for a law firm and had a very similar problem where it was hallucinating cases and everything. And so we built out a rule checker that essentially is the referee. It just makes sure every assignment follows the rules and everything's good to go. And then lastly, you need the manager layer. This is where the humans review, we make quick edits, and we approve. Humans can always override. So we've talked about the flow, but now let's talk about how the planner thinks. So imagine a list of legal options, okay? Person A can work shift 1, person B can work shift 2, and so on. So we score each option. Good things get a bonus, like matching preferences. Bad things get a penalty, like overtime or using an agency when staff members are available. So we're creating this sort of scoring system. The planner picks the lowest cost set that still covers all required shifts. Anything left over becomes an agency request. And then the rules as simple data follows. So we store the rules in tables. So basically we're creating a table in a spreadsheet, and they're not buried in any sort of code. A couple examples of these rules are coverage needs. So for example, the unit, the date, how many RNs do you need? How many CNAs do you need? What qualifications do they need to have? Are there hour limits and rest time? 40 hours per week, 8 hours a shift? And we add weights to those costs. So for example, overtime penalty, agency penalty, preference bonus. And this just makes it easy to change rules without rebuilding the system, because if a new technology comes along that's smarter than our current LLMs and we have this system set up, we can simply plug it into that smarter system and it'll be more efficient and more effective without having to rebuild everything from the ground up. So it runs on a private AWS network, and it uses Okta for sign-in and multi-factor. It encrypts your data, which is so important with stuff like this. You want to make sure it's all encrypted. But what does it look like from the manager experience? Well, the manager simply opens the schedule, sees coverage at a glance, sees warnings like rest window too short, click to swap a shift, approve, done. The system explains any flag in plain English. And so this is super important, because what a lot of times these solutions will do, I look a little out of frame there. A lot of times what these solutions will do is make things way more complicated for the managers. And they're like, actually, I'd rather just do this myself because this is so confusing and so complicated. So it was really important for this build that it was just straightforward, simple, and easy to digest and to consume. So take a look at this right here. This is really interesting. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more for you. So this is kind of like what it looks like beforehand, right? It's very manual. You have overtime, you have compliance risks, you have manual edits. It's a mess. It's a nightmare. And this is what that kind of initial spreadsheet would have looked like. Now, in terms of the architecture, it's very simple. So it's the data adapter, the AI optimizer, the validator, all to the user interface, and we add the logic with the LLM in there, and it's all hosted inside of AWS, so it's private, it's secure, and it's good to go. Now, if this is confusing to you, it's understandable, but basically just focus on the title. So the data comes in, it sends it to the AI, and then it sends it to the manager to confirm. That's like the most simple layman's terms that I can put it, and this is wildly effective. Okay, so let's think about before and after. Like, what does it look like? Well, I showed you the before and how much chaos and mess it is. And this is just kind of the current manual scheduling. So with the current manual scheduling, you're getting all types of overtime, unrealized revenue, all types of stuff that's just not good for the business. But when it's optimized, you should get a 12% overtime cut. And that's just one part of the equation that you're saving. So, just for this little pilot, we were piloting one location with 25 people. It was around $16,000 in annual savings. Extrapolate that out to hundreds of places with even bigger units, and you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost savings. And that's why this is such an attractive solution to a business owner. Now, whenever I'm building something like this out, I want to have KPIs. I want to be very clear on the ROI and the return on investment. And so the way we gauge this success was if we had a greater than 10% reduction in overtime hours and a greater than 90% approval rate with the scheduling system. Well, I can tell you that we smashed that out of the water. So it was well worth their investment. And now we're building out additional stuff for the business on many different verticals. But guys, the point is, AI is so efficient and so good if you build it correctly, but you just have to be careful. Stuff doesn't have to be super complex and over the top complicated. Make sure you have your validations and checkers in there. Make sure everything's going to be accurate and lined up correctly. And if you can do that, you can either A, sell this to businesses for a lot of money. B, you can make your business a lot of money by, just implementing it into the business. C, you can implement it into your job by building out workflows and solutions to help you be more productive and get more output out of what you're trying to do. And ultimately, there's really no way that this doesn't increase productivity. So when people are talking about an increase in productivity within the economy, for example, this is a great example. So these people that were all working on this, they're now free to work on other things that are high leverage. And this makes the business more productive. It makes people feel more productive, makes them happier because they're playing a bigger role. And so this is the $45,000 build that we did. Now, obviously, I couldn't disclose all the details because that's trade secrets, I guess you'd say. But I hope this video was helpful. And, I'm curious what kind of builds you might be thinking about, whether it's for your job, for your business, or for your life. If there's a bottleneck in your life, business, or job that you're struggling with, leave a comment and I'll make a video about how to build a custom solution for that. And I'll include even more details than were in this video. So hopefully this was helpful. Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment because I'm posting every day AI content for non-technical people so that they can get a better grasp of it and improve their life, business, or job.